You're listening to Wanderlust Diaries, the ultimate travel podcast for solo female travellers 40 and beyond who are ready to explore the world. Join me, Terri Reynolds, where we talk all things travel and why it's so important and what's stopping you from getting out there and exploring the world. We'll discuss the steps you can take now to fix it, empowering you to ignite your curiosity and set your heart free so that you have the confidence to travel wherever you want, whenever you want. Offering insights, tips, hacks, and remarkable women's stories along the way. So come on, grab your passport, pack your sense of adventure, and get ready to be inspired. Whether you're a first-time solo traveller or a seasoned globetrotter, Wanderlust Diaries is your community of like-minded souls, uplifting and supporting women over 40 who dare to explore. Welcome to Wanderlust Diaries, the podcast where we celebrate all things female solo travel. I'm your host, Terri Reynolds, and in this episode, we'll talk about why solo travel is so important and how you can become a solo traveller too. No matter what your age or experience, my mission is to simplify, demystify, and take the fear out of solo travel for all women. And today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have a guest I've known a while now. We met while studying the same travel coaching program, where we realised we had a lot in common. More of that later. So please welcome Gina Cambridge. Now, Gina is a travel coach. She's a travel experience host facilitator and the founder of Wanderlust Solo Women Tours. After her own transformational travel journey later in life, Gina realised how impactful travel was in empowering her to build confidence and create amazing friendships. She's run 24 retreats and has shared amazing travel dreams with over 123 women. Gina provides fun, authentic and genuine travel experiences for women and one-to-one personal travel coaching to set you on a path to help you make your dream transformational journey a reality. And I love on your logo, and it says, travel like a local, not a tourist. So Gina, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to our chat, but would you like to explain a little bit about yourself before we get into it?
Kia ora, and thank you for having me, Terri. I'm really happy to be here and be one of the first ones on your awesome new podcast, helping lots of women to get out there and explore. So I'm born and bred in New Zealand, so that's where I'm coming from today or tonight, and it's a beautiful country if anyone's been here. I started my travels quite later in life. In New Zealand, we call... when everyone is in, their 20s, they have go on their overseas or OE experience. I didn't do mine until my 39th birthday, so I'm a late bloomer. But, it's been an amazing experience. And other than travel, I'm a fur baby mama. I love my dogs and I love a bit of DIY, so you quite often see me with a hammer and doing all bits and pieces around the house. But travel is my passion, and sharing it with women and connecting with people like Terri here is definitely a bonus in the travel area that we're both in.
Love that. Yeah, thanks. So you're a bit of a DIYer as well.
Yeah.
We have to be. I think when we become single, we have to learn certain things, don't we?
Yes. You've got to be self-reliant.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So you're coming in on the call from New Zealand, and of course the time difference. I'm in early morning, and now you're going into late evening now. But thank you so much for joining. So, right, let's get into it then. So, I suppose what I'd like to start off with is your why. Yeah. So, what initially sparked your interest in solo travel, and how did you decide to take the plunge?
Yeah, so I just touched on it in the intro. I didn't start, till later in life. So I literally was 39 when I embarked on a backpacking adventure. I had been on, holidays and stuff. And ironically, my first big solo trip was just before my 39th. It was when I was going through a bit of a we hadn't quite broken up, but things went quite well. And I went to clear my head, I suppose, and I did a trip to Egypt. I went into the travel agent to book one thing and ended up on a trip to Egypt and joined a group tour. Went all the way there by myself, never done anything like that before, and it was transformational. It really, really was. And came home and I thought I was going to dedicate, get really stuck back into this relationship, and then he said no, it's ended again. So it sort of spun me on my head a bit, and it took a few years, but I regrouped, and that's when I literally bought a one-way ticket to Europe, and went backpacking for the next 8 months, and I had my 40th birthday in Paris under the Eiffel Tower with a bunch of strangers, and I did things like woofing and work away and had amazing experiences, which we'll touch on later in the podcast. But what it did is my self-esteem was really low at the time. And what it did, it opened my eyes up to the world. And there were people that were willing to just welcome me. And I hadn't had that in such a long time. And I felt, for the first time in a very long time, like I belonged somewhere. Even though I was in no one set place, I felt a sense of belonging and confidence. So coming home, it wasn't straight away, but after the following years, I made it, I'm definitely going to travel every year. This is going to be my thing. And I did do that. And when I travel, I like slow travel. So I go for, 4 to 5 weeks at a time. And then I started to think, well, I really love this, and it's obviously a passion of mine. How can I turn this into something that's more than just something I do, but something I can share and maybe make a living of? And that's where Wanderlust Solo Women Tours first sort of.
Well, we'll touch on that a little bit more later, if you like. Yeah. We'll talk more about that, because I do have questions around that. So we'll talk more about that. So I love that. And you say you're 39 when you did it. I was the same age. This is why, we said earlier about we've got so many things in common. I was 39 when I did it. I'd gone off to Greece the year before with a friend. And I was going to go back to Greece the following year to do work, go there as a worker, take a year out from work. And somebody in work came up to me and said, oh, I understand you're going to do this, but what about a round the world ticket? So I went from possibly going back to Greece for 6 months to then going around the world for a year at 39. I mean, I just couldn't, and I had my 40th while I was in Melbourne.
Oh, wow.
In Australia. Yeah. So I was working there in one of the hotels in St Kilda. The SP. So I was working there. So we did something very similar, I mean, I hadn't even gone as a youngster on girly holidays. Is that something that you've done?
No, not at all. I was in steady relationships from a very young age, and it wasn't really something that I did. And it also wasn't something I spent time on myself in that sense, I just worked. I worked and worked and worked. I bought a house young, and it, all of a sudden you start changing your perspective and your priorities become different. So that was really, the catalyst. It's like I had a really epiphany, I've been working, and where have I got, now my relationship's gone. I had to buy my partner out of my house, and all this other stuff happened. And, I just realized there's actually a lot more out there.
Yes, no, exactly. And that was the same reason for me as well. Relationship had broken down, marriage had broken down. And I knew that I had to do something different. I was in a bit of a routine of eat, work, sleep, repeat. Yeah. And I thought there's got to be, my daughter was 19 by this time, so I had no little children. And I just thought I need to do something. I really wanted to, I don't know if you felt this as well. I really wanted to take myself out of my comfort zone, do something totally scary, because I was so comfortable. It was driving me a bit crazy. But that's how I felt. Were you a bit similar?
Yeah, 100%. Like I went, luckily I've got a dual passport, so I've got a British passport. So I went and applied for a live-in care position in the UK.
Fab.
Talk about put me out of my comfort zone. I'd never even changed a baby's nappy, and I all of a sudden found myself looking after a lady with MS, severe MS. It was a huge learning curve. And
Wow.
the thing with me, I think, and I was thinking about this the other day, I didn't have a lot of money. And because I didn't have a lot of money to take this journey, I had to think of inventive ways to make it happen. And one of the inventive ways was to be a live-in carer, because I was able to have my, I had a roof over my head and I got a wage, but also, doing things like woofing and work away. So, I had to be quite inventive, but what I thought, it actually gave me quite a more in-depth experience. I think now looking back, if I'd had disposable income, there's no way I would have had the same experience.
I think you're right there. I had to save because I knew I was going away for a year. I had to save a lot of money to take with me. And back in those days, we didn't have mobile phones or the internet, banking online wasn't really a thing. I had to take a load of travelers checks with me, all that type of thing. So I had to be very careful, as I traveled, but also, I was lucky enough to find work as well, working in the hostels, especially in Australia and when I got to the States. So you have to, that's it. When you haven't got disposable income, you have to find a way, don't you, to survive really, and to keep yourself afloat. So I love those stories. Well, we'll get a bit more into that in a little while. Okay, so we found out what your why was and why you decided to take the plunge. Can you share some of the most significant personal growth experiences you've had as a solo traveller?
I suppose the biggest one, 100%, is being self-confidence. I would call myself an introvert extrovert. I come from a very small town. Like when I say small town, like 7,000 people. Never used public transport, and to go, and then you've got to become self-reliant, and you've got to force yourself to talk to people, because sometimes you've got to ask for directions, and you need to. Otherwise, you're going to be very isolated. So you end up coming out of your shell, I suppose, in that sense. So I found this whole new personality while I was traveling, and that even sticks today. I'm 100%, without a doubt, a different person when I travel. Or I shouldn't say a different person, a different version of myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would agree
like
with that.
Person.
Yes. Isn't it? I mean, it's kind of fascinating, really, how that happens. Yeah, because I would say when I'm solo traveling, what I love about it is the fact that you can be on your own. That's the introvert in me. I'm quite happy just to be on my own, or you can seek people out, and your personality comes out. And I found that absolutely, you have to, otherwise you would go traveling without possibly speaking to anybody if you go traveling alone. So you have to learn. It's a learned skill though, isn't it? You don't suddenly go off and say, right, I'm going to become this person.
No, it's definitely a learnt skill. And what I have found is I have been less alone when I've solo traveled than I'm now with my partner, and we love traveling together, and I still travel solo as well. But I 100% meet less people when I'm with him, which is really interesting. I think sometimes people think, oh, you're with someone, so they're okay. They're in their own little bubble. They don't need talking to. So when you are by yourself, you do have a totally different experience, and you tend to engage a lot more with people, which I love.
Absolutely agree with that. That exactly is the way that it is. And I find that when I go away with somebody, my cousin or a friend, that is the case. You don't. Whereas I will go and speak to people, so it's no big deal to me because I'm used to doing that. But those who are not, especially people who are married, women who are married, and they've always gone with their partners, so they've always been in a couple. They're not so much as outgoing in that way, I would say. So I agree, that you do absolutely go and speak to others. I just gravitate.
Yeah, and
To
they
others.
gravitate to you. It's a mutual thing.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's what I love about it. And this is what I was saying earlier. When you want to be alone, and you just literally need some space to be by yourself, you can. But when most of the time, the majority of the time, that's not the case. But sometimes you do, and then it's fun. I love it. I just love. It's like polar opposites, isn't it? And I love that. Love that. So yeah. Totally agree with everything you've just said. Okay, then. So moving on from that, how do you then choose your solo travel destinations? And I mean, what factors do you consider when planning your trip?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, everything
No.
comes from personal experience. So I will never promote or share anything I haven't either gone and done or experienced myself first. So that's the first thing. I've either been to the destination or I've done the activity or whatever, and I thought, oh, this will be amazing. I'd love to share this. So it's definitely come from a personal space. And then I also feel by doing that more confident being able to share that with others because I'm able to answer questions and provide help and logistics in the planning stages of it. Because if I haven't been, how can I explain to others how it is? So New Zealand, obviously, because I live here, so I know it very well. Bali, my initial visits to Bali came about because I had a girlfriend I met traveling. She's an American, but I actually met her when we were both backpacking, and we stayed in the same hostel in Thailand. And again, we bonded over disastrous relationships. At the time, she was teaching English in Spain, and then she ended up coming to New Zealand, and she was traveling around Southeast Asia, and she ended up basing herself in Bali, and she married a local. So that's how my experience in Bali came about, is because I go and stay with them. So I felt I sort of got beyond the tourist side of Bali a little bit, because I think if you just go to the certain tourist areas, you sort of, especially for me, I tend to steer clear of those sort of places, with the real built up tourist places. So I was able to, get a little bit beyond that. So that's why Bali was.
And that's why I loved what you said, about go act like a local, go there, be a local and not a tourist, because that totally resonated with me, because I want to be like a local. I want to go to the places they eat, the places they visit, all of those things, because that those places are going to be really, really good. And you just do want to get away from the hustle and bustle of touristy areas. I mean, it's nice to go and visit now and again and walk through those areas.
And most people, they do want to see, they've seen all the images and Instagram and whatever. And of course, there are opportunities to do that. But it's great to, I think I'm very into conscious travel and having a deeper experience. So it's also educating travelers, because, just around sustainability and the products you use and the businesses you support, making sure they're locally owned. That they're ethical, all those little things. Sometimes when people are looking at a holiday, they just get a package, which is fine. But there's also a deeper level, and it's just connecting with those other levels of travel, I suppose. I really love, experiencing and sharing that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's about, like you said, about sustainability and about buying local, so that
Yes.
you're there, and while you're there, you are helping them out, and while you're helping them out, you're learning all about the locality and what
Yeah,
goes on there,
100%.
no matter what it is. If you're somewhere, near a paddy field or whatever, and you can learn all about that. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. And even now, I've gone on package holidays with friends and that, and I've done it because I've just done it.
It's
But it's
easy.
never ever the same as it as actually going and acting like a local, not going to the touristy areas and traveling around and not just going to the one place. There is a massive difference
Yeah.
between those two
And
different
there's a
types of
time for both. Sometimes we only have a week off work. We literally just
Yes,
want to unwind and sit by the pool. There's nothing wrong with those package experiences for that. But if
absolutely.
you're in a position where you can have a little bit more time off, if you can, and travel a little bit more deeper, you have you can have those tools to have different experiences.
No, you're right. And, some people, this is why I want to, empower women to be able to go solo traveling, because it's sometimes as well, the package holidays could be the easy option. So
Yes.
it's just easy, isn't it, to just go online, pick something, everything's done for you. But the thing about solo traveling, or even just traveling outside of that, is it's about the excitement of booking booking everything outside of that, and going to and looking at researching where you want to go, where you'd like to go. All right, so on a package holiday, you're going to go there, you're going to do this, and like you said, if you only got 7 days, absolutely fantastic, go for it. Nothing wrong with them at all. But if you have got that little bit of a spark in you that would like to, go off the beaten track a little bit, even just stay outside of the touristy area, so you've still got that safe haven. If you want to go down there, you can. Um, that's the excitement for me. It's the research, finding out, oh, so that's there, but look at this over here as well. This is something that you may not have even known about if you just got taken that package holiday.
Yeah, and I think you have to have a certain sense of openness, and I
Mm.
don't want to call it naivety, but women are great at trusting their instinct and their gut, and I think that's really important as a solo female traveller. But you've got to be open to having conversations with people, because I know very early on in my solo travels I was very quick to shut people down if I felt like they were harassing me or started
Mm.
talking to me. I was like, oh, what do they want? They're trying to sell me something. And you know but there can be very interesting and amazing opportunities from actually starting a conversation with someone. And then by talking to locals, you get to find out, that cute little coffee shop, or that back alley, antique shop, or the hidden walking trail that connects to some amazing temple, or something like that, that you wouldn't have known otherwise.
No, no, absolutely. So, yeah, we've got a few elements of travel, and some of them, well, they're all great. As you can go and travel, no matter how, just travel anyway. But yeah, just knowing about those little, and like you say about the conversations, having those conversations. Because I know when I first got to India, that was my first port of call when I
In
was
the
traveling,
temples.
so far out of my comfort zone, as you can imagine. I mean, I fell in love with the place by the time I'd, been there for a few weeks. But the first few days and the first week or so, and people were, they were coming up and talking to us, because I did start off with somebody I worked with just for a couple of weeks, and it was like, right, what are you trying to tell me then? What do you want from me? But yeah, like you said, you have to go a little bit deeper. Just have those conversations, yeah, and
Yeah.
don't be terrified by it, because I think when I first got to it, I think I was a bit, rabbit in headlights, and I, soon calmed down, and it was a lovely experience. I just want to, because I think this segues nicely into, I'm talking about destinations now, or you're talking about destinations, I should say. I remember asking you a question about 3 countries
Yeah.
or places that you'd visited that really surprised you. Now, the first one on your list was Jordan. So tell us a little bit about Jordan. What surprised you there?
So I was actually there this time last year. Keeps popping up in my photo memories. So yeah, we did Egypt and Jordan together, and I'd been to, like I mentioned earlier, been to Egypt before, and I'd wanted to go to Jordan, obviously, to see Petra. That's why everyone goes to Jordan, to see Petra. Yeah. And I thought, we can't go all this way and not see it this time. But what I was really surprised about is, we had quite a bit of time in Amman, which is the capital city, how cosmopolitan it was. It was very arty, with lots of street art and music and like cute little alleyways with cafes and like right in the middle of the city is a big Roman Colosseum and an amphitheater, and it's just quite a diverse city. But the whole country, because you hear of like I said, Petra and Wadi Rum, but there's Little Petra and there's, I'm very bad at names, but all these other amazing places, and I love history, and I found it absolutely fascinating, and it was super safe. I was traveling with my partner, but at no time did I feel unsafe, and that goes for Egypt as well. You could be out, and that's the other wonderful thing about both countries. Everyone comes out at night time. When I say everyone, families. So it's 11 o'clock at night and the streets are just bustling with families, and the parks are all full with kids playing, and it's so family orientated, which I really, really love. So that's one thing I absolutely loved about Jordan.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was in India, that they all seem to, a lot of them seem to come out at night as well, which I thought we're so not used to that. Absolutely, yeah. So it was like, what are they all coming out for? What's going on? Is there a festival? Is something going? And it wasn't. It was just normal for them, and I loved that. So what kind of research did you do then before you got to Jordan?
Yeah, so obviously going from traveling anywhere from New Zealand, we're thousands of miles away from everywhere. So the first thing I always do with all my travel planning is I search flights. So I don't book my flights through Skyscanner, but I use Skyscanner for a lot of searching, and I try and get creative. So a lot of trips start there. And also like I did originally for Egypt, we joined a group tour, because to me, Jordan's vast, just like Egypt, and you're covering, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. And if you not familiar with the language, and you're not familiar with the culture or getting around, going on a group tour, even though you're traveling solo, is a great way to just find out about a country and get familiar with it. You can all, both trips, we added extra time on at the end, so we could just do our own thing. But by the time we'd done the group tour, and also you go to all these monuments and temples and things, and if you're not with a guide, they're just a bunch of rocks quite often, and you don't, you're looking at a big round rock with a hole in it. You go, it's a big round rock with a hole in it. But if you've got your guide there, they say, well, this was, this, that, and everything else fabulous. So it is really beneficial to understand what you're actually looking at, and I like the small group tours. If you're going to do them, there's some fabulous ones out there. So that's what we did in Jordan, did a group tour, was fabulous, amazing group of people, and then we added on free time at the end to by then we were quite comfortable. It's really good also to get used to the currency. People get quite, I know it causes a lot of anxiety for travelers when they're using currency they're not familiar with, conversions and everything like that, and then they worry they're going to get ripped off. So it gives you that time too to sort of come to terms with currency and what things are worth, and scams that you should be aware of and things like that.
So it's given you a bit of confidence doing it that way as well. And
yeah.
And like you say, you could waste a lot of time trying to get here, and then you realize the next place you want to go to is like 100 miles away, maybe over there. But if you've got that group tour element, that takes all that pain away from it, saves you a lot of time, and you get the knowledge. You get the knowledge from it. So thanks for that. Now, the next one on your list is Cuba. Now, you say that's super safe as well. Now, ironically, just a day or two ago, I've now got the Rough Guide to Cuba. I saw it. I wanted it. I've not been. I've not booked anything. I just know I want to go. And when I saw the book, I thought, I'm just going to have it. So tell me everything.
Next year.
I know. Yes.
Yeah, and you're going to need that book. So travel in Cuba is like traveling, I've got to be right now, traveling 30 years ago. You do need a hard copy of Lonely Planet, Rough Guide. You do need it because you can, and it's so great to actually disconnect from technology. It's unlike any country I'd travel to. So there's no, obviously because it's a communist or socialist country, there is no advertising. There is internet, but it's just complicated. Everything there's complicated, but it's just complicated. So you can go on it, but it's not that easy. You can't just go online and book your next hotel or book your bus ticket. You've literally got to either ring or physically go down there. So when I arrived, I arrived.
It's so old school, though, Gina. So old school, because that's what I had to do. I had to carry my Rough Guide books with me around the world. Can you imagine the weight of those, as well as everything else to do? No.
That's what I mean. This is how people travelled. And when I first arrived, because I joined a small group tour. It was for 8 days because I thought, I don't know Spanish. There's no way I'm going to transport's complicated. Everything's complicated. So I joined a small group tour, but I arrived early, so I had a few days. So when I first arrived, of course I got, no map. So there was a sign in Old Havana, like a big painted sign, and it was a map of the old city. So I had to take a photo of that, and that was my map for the next 3 days. But it's great because, again, it gets you outside your comfort zone, and you have to rely on different senses and different ways of doing things. Years ago, this is how everyone travelled. We didn't have technology, but everyone travelled fine. It's just we've got so reliant on it. And I think, too, not having to think more about being organised, because there's not just a 7-Eleven or a convenience store around the corner. Even getting like bottled water, it's complicated. So you've got to be a lot more pre-organised. But it was again super, super safe, very safe. The culture is incredible. They dance like phenomenally, and I tried cigars and I don't smoke, and I tried rum and I don't drink rum, and it was amazing. And just the people are incredibly resilient, and it is how you see in the photos. A lot of places you see them in Instagram or whatever, and you think, and then you go there and you're slightly disappointed. All the old cars and falling down buildings and the amazing architecture, that is how it is. And it's quite amazing. They have preserved, like, Ernest Hemingway's house. So he lived there for quite a long time, and with his boat. And he gifted it to the Cuban government, or Fidel Castro at the time.
Yeah.
So they've preserved it. And, I mean, there's a Picasso on the wall. And it's just how he left it, and it's incredible, and it is like stepping back in time. And I love architecture and history, so I found all that quite amazing as well.
Oh, well, I haven't had a chance to even open the book yet, but I know I've just always been drawn to Cuba, so I know that's I will go there eventually. And you just made me realise how much I want to go, because it sounds just fascinating, and colourful and full of life.
And again, the conversations, like I was very lucky to team up. There were 3 ladies actually from the US. They were school teachers, but one of them was fluent in Spanish. So she would, talk to locals. And because she could speak Spanish, they opened up a lot more. And we got into all sorts of places, no one else was getting into. It was fabulous.
Sounds wonderful. Love that. Obviously, I'm going to be reading my book after this. So what about New York? So that was another place.
So it's not a country, it was a city. So I had met a travel buddy. We're best friends for many years now. I actually met her in Turkey. And from the following years, every year we'd meet up with each other. So she lives in the States. So she came to New Zealand and we've met in Italy. And then I went to the US to see her. And she just lives about in Connecticut. So it's about an hour and a half out of New York City. But she's a New Yorker. But so we'd stayed in New York City and everything. But I ended up going back in for a day because I hadn't gone to the Statue of Liberty. And you can't go to New York without going to the Statue of Liberty. And it was just after the biggest snowstorm that had hit the East Coast in 10 years and all this sort of stuff. But what I found with New York City, I felt, so I took myself there on the train and then I hopped on the subway and took myself uptown or downtown. I can't remember which one it was. But I didn't feel out of my depth. I think because I'd watched so many TV shows that would, and because it's a grid system, the streets and everything, I felt quite comfortable there, which is a really weird thing. And the food was amazing. There's like every sort of food you can think of. But I found, weirdly quite easy to navigate. And I remember walking, I just come out of the Grand Central Station and it started snowing. And I was like, got all romantic. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in New York City and it's snowing and I'm walking around getting quite wet because I'm not used to snow. And
of course.
And then I realised the snow's turning to ick sludge and I'm actually getting quite wet. No one else is really doing what I'm doing. But in that split, a few couple of minutes, it was quite romantic, scenario.
It's the experience though, isn't it? Like you say, you're not used to snow. So you just wanted to experience it. And then you experience the ick part of it that we all know as well.
So sometimes it's the very small things that, I take great pleasure in when I'm traveling.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I felt the same in New York as well. I went there on my own and then I went back about 5 or 6 years later with a group of friends. There were 4 of us that went and we stayed in the old New Yorker hotel, which was amazing. It was just like the Art Deco, wasn't it? And it was fantastic. We just loved it. But it's so easy, isn't it? You've got the grid system. And in my rough guide, the grid system is all there. So and it's just so easy to find everything. But I was like you, I felt, when I was on my own, I felt fine. I didn't feel, anything out of place or anything like that. It was just easy to find my way around. And Grand Central Station, I mean, it's what a building that is, isn't it? It's I just went there to have a look. Really, didn't necessarily get on the train, but it was. It is a great city to visit. Okay, so we've talked a bit now about your travels and where you've been and what surprised you. We've also talked a little bit about safety, and how you felt safe. Are there any tips or practicalities that you could pass on to women who are thinking of going solo traveling, that they could learn from, that they could take on board?
Yeah, I think because I'm 52 now, so traveling, I think a lot of women think they can't do it when they're older, that there's certain restrictions and, society sort of puts us in a bit of a box and forget all about that, and also too, and it's not for everyone, but, I do stay when I'm traveling by myself and a lot in hostels. Now, a lot of hostels have private rooms, But what it does is it very much connects you with people. When I've stayed in hotels and and I might book myself a really nice hotel for a night, I don't talk to anyone because there's no one to talk to. By staying in hostels, and again, if you feel comfortable, book a private room.
Yes.
But there's a community there, and you end up, they have activities like free walking tours or excursions to different places. And you'll find in a lot of these hostels now, there are older travelers. So and people don't worry about your age. Don't get hung up on your age when you're traveling. Some of my best friends when I was traveling are in their 20s. They didn't care because you're bonding on a certain level. Age doesn't come into it. So the first thing I would say is you don't let society's restrictions about your age and they stop you from thinking you can go and solo travel is probably one of my top tips or something I'd really love to encourage. Trusting your gut and your instinct. Doesn't matter where you are at home or abroad. Again, that's going to take you a long way. You'll know when you're in a dodgy situation and to be honest, and I'm sure a lot of other travelers have had the same thing. You say to your friends, I'm going here, I'm going there, and they go, oh God, aren't you scared? Or, isn't that dangerous? To be honest, I would feel more dangerous walking around one of the cities here in New Zealand than half the places I've travelled to overseas. Egypt and Jordan's a great example. I felt way safer at night in those countries than I would in my own capital city here. I think the safety aspect is something that holds a lot of women back. But you'll find it a lot safer, and it just comes down to common sense. Obviously don't put yourself, don't walk down alleyways in the middle of the night, but you wouldn't do that at home.
No, so exactly. Again, and it's about just research as well, isn't it? Make sure you've got the internet now, everything's at your fingertips. You can look up any place in the world and you can find out information about it.
And cultural respect, different customs and things, obviously if you're going to a Muslim country, there's certain things you need to do. Leave your judgment of whether it's right or wrong at home, because you are going to a different destination and that's how they operate. We don't always agree with some of these things, but we have to be respectful. One big tip is don't have expectations. Travel without expectations, because if you build yourself up to I'm going to see this and this is going to be amazing and I'm going to do this, and then something goes wrong and then you feel really low because you haven't done it to your expectations. If you travel with no expectations, you'll have such a better experience.
Yeah, and expect the unexpected, because that happens.
It's pyramids of cheese tagline in Bali.
Oh yeah. No, that's really useful information. I was going to come back and say something about the first thing you mentioned, but I can't remember what it was now. My memory's not great and I didn't write it down. So I'll probably remember as soon as we stop this conversation. No, so that's lovely. Thank you for that. But what I want to touch on now is, obviously through your travels, you now have your own business. So tell us about that, because all these retreats that you do, I want to come.
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky. And like I said, right at the intro, my passion for travel and wanting to share similar experiences, led me to build my business, which, we had the pandemic, so it sort of, took one step back in a way, but then I was able to explore local retreats here in New Zealand, which was amazing, because then that I was able to build quite a neat clientele here in New Zealand, which have then come on to other trips. And, back in Bali this year, we've done 2 already, and I'm actually off this time next month. I'll be back in Bali doing another one. So it's been great getting back and supporting, because it's also, you know, my ethos is very much about giving back to local communities. So this is it's been another tool to facilitate that. And it's been really, I have to pinch myself. Sometimes I forget the transformations the ladies have. And like my experiences, I'm not a wellness coach. I'm not a yoga teacher, and it's not all about detoxing or getting up at 7 a.m. every morning. So mine are all about tasters of different experiences. So you can come along, and so in Bali, for example, you know, you go e-biking or make jewelry or try yoga or go pyramids of chi in a sound bath or cooking. So there's lots of different things, and what's happened is even the ones here, women have tried something they haven't previously or didn't feel comfortable previously trying, and then they've gone, actually, I'm really good at that, or I really like that. So they've gone away now with a new interest and a new skill. And it's been very simple moments. Like I had a lady, we'd gone e-biking and we stop on the rice terraces and they go on a Bali swing, and she just turned to me and she had tears in her eyes and she just said, thank you. And, you know, and it gave me a hug. She said, I didn't realize how much I needed this. And I think
wonderful.
those special moments, you know, have really, there is such a need, because as women, we wear so many hats. Like we have our day job. Quite often we've got a side hustle. There's either kids or, you know, even like myself, I had my elderly mother I had to look after. So there's always these other responsibilities going on. So when women give themselves space just for themselves, sometimes it's very fleeting and very rare, they're able to actually stop and realize how much they actually just needed that time out. And that's been really, really special.
Exactly. It's a release, isn't it? You know, and that goes
100%.
the same for, you know, any women who are, they may not necessarily be solo travelers, but they may need a release from their job if they've got high powered jobs, you know, positions in whatever world they're in. They need a release as well, you know, from the day to day, and to do something totally different. And like you just said, you know, I mean, I've only done a sound bath once, and that was quite a while ago. But to be able to do one in Bali, oh my God, you know, I mean, that's something else, isn't it? You know, you're literally for me, you know, out of my my usual environment and taken somewhere else, you know, somewhere that's so beautiful that you can actually, and to relax and literally go with it. And like you say, all these different activities that you can do or you don't have to do, you know, is amazing, isn't it, to be able to have just to have those opportunities at your fingertips while you're away.
And what I have noticed too, and it takes some women a few days to wind down. They're so busy looking after or always looking after other people. It's very rare they get looked after.
Yes.
So it takes a few days for them to realize that I'm looking after them.
Yes.
I'm camp mother, and they can, you know, take a back seat. And even myself, I've struggled with that, you know, letting go of control. And that's definitely a lesson in itself.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree, because I think, you know, if you just think about going on holiday, you know, just going on a holiday, it takes a couple of days for you to kind of come down off the, you know, I'll come out of the hamster wheel, you know, to really enjoy what's going on. I always find that if I go for 7 days somewhere, it's not long enough. 10 days is just right, because you've got that couple of days to come off the hamster wheel, and then you can enjoy it. But how long are your retreats for, Gina? You know, what length of time are they?
Yeah, so the Bali ones are 7 days, 7 nights and 8 days. The local ones here in New Zealand are 2 nights, 3 days, because that's the other thing I found. You know, some women can't take a lot of time away. So the local ones here, it's just like a long weekend. And then the Cuba one is 8 days. So they're just long enough, because you're going to be with people you don't know. And group dynamics is always very interesting. So I like to keep the groups very small, and I found, seven nights is enough for the group to have fun, bond, but then it's normally time, and I've felt this as a traveller myself, it's time to move on and either have your own space and do your own thing, or it's just the right time, I think.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. And with that, either side, like you said, you'd gone there a couple of days before and you can stay a couple of days after. So if you want that time then to go off and do, I think that I need to do your Cuba retreat, I think. Stay with you and then go off and do my own thing. And that sounds amazing. I love that. And you say you've helped over 123 women now as well.
I know, I had to count them and I was like,
business.
wow, that's pretty cool.
I know, that's amazing. Well done. And do you still stay in touch with those people?
Yeah, we've got a really good, I've had ladies, I always start a group chat before a trip, because it's just a great way to break the ice for everyone to get to know each other, so you don't feel like total strangers. It also gives me an opportunity to get to know you and your needs and how, everyone interacts with each other, and everybody stays in touch, and a lot of them have, caught up afterwards, and I stay in touch with a lot of them, and it's great. It's a really neat community, and then sometimes we have just meetups, if we're in the same areas and can catch up.
Yeah, I love that. That's the community. I love the community aspect of that. And that's what I aim to do with my podcast, and, just get a little community going so that we've got everybody in there who just wants to chat to each other, because then they'll know that they've got, if somebody's coming in new who hasn't traveled before but would really like to, then it'd be a great group to ask those questions.
Exactly.
I want to do this, I want to do that, and so I love the community aspects of travel. Okay. Well, do you know what? We've been almost an hour now talking, which I can't believe. And I could talk for another hour. But I think, it's been great. Absolutely brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today, and I really do feel like I need to grab my newly renewed passport, because I've just literally
make sure you've got a current valid passport with 6 months on it before you do anything. Absolutely,
yes. Thank you for that, because mine is due in January, so I had to do something about it pretty quick. So I've got mine, it's renewed, I've got it now in my hands, so it's here. But thank you, Gina, travel coach, travel host facilitator, and like I said, making me want to grab my passport and join her on one of her retreats. So again, thank you. It's been great speaking to you. And honestly, now I look forward to hearing more about your adventures in the future. Now, all the information and links from today's podcast about Gina will be put into the show notes, so you'll be able to access any information you need from her. So that's all for today's episode of Wanderlust Diaries. We hope you found it informative and helpful. If you have any questions, feedback, or would like to be a guest, please feel free to reach out to us on our website or social media channels, and all details will be in the show notes. And remember, age should never deter your pursuit of adventure, and the world is waiting for you to explore its wonders. This podcast can be found on all podcast platforms. Please subscribe and review. See you next time on Wanderlust Diaries. Thank you. And that concludes this episode of Wanderlust Diaries, celebrating the fearless spirit of solo female travellers who are 40 and beyond. I hope you found inspiration, valuable insights, and a renewed sense of wanderlust. Thank you to all our incredible listeners who have joined us on this exciting journey. Remember, age should never stop your quest for adventure, because the world is waiting for you to explore its wonders. And don't forget to join our community on social media to connect with fellow travellers, and subscribe and review us on your favourite podcast platform. All links are in the show notes. Keep dreaming, keep exploring, and stay fearless. Until next time, this is Terri Reynolds signing off from Wanderlust Diaries. Psst, don't keep me a secret. Please tell your friends and fellow travellers.